What's up, bestie? It's Maggie with Math Savvy. Today, after this video, you are gonna feel so good about limits at infinity. You're literally gonna know everything. Okay, so let's start. There's 3 things that you need to just memorize. First one, when we're dealing with limits as x goes to infinity, the only thing you need to worry about are the x's with exponents. In this case, the x is going to cancel out just to x. You plug infinity into x, your answer is infinity. All right, so if you have a bigger exponent on top than you do at the bottom, there's an imaginary one here, then your answer is going to be infinity. That's the first thing you need to memorize. All right, number 2. In this case, these x's are going to cancel out. So if you have an exponent with the same number on top, they're going to cancel out, and your answer as x goes to infinity is just going to be 3/2. It's just going to be these coefficients. Cool, 2 out of 3 done. Next, if there is a bigger exponent on the bottom than there is on top, like if this could literally be like x too, your answer is going to be 0. All right, why? 1/2 is bigger than 1/3, which is bigger than 1/4, which is bigger than 1/5. So this is just going to keep going and going and going. And once you get 1 over infinity, it's already gotten so small that you can basically say that it's 0. So you need to memorize bigger over smaller is going to be infinity. The same over the same are just going to be equal to the coefficients, and smaller over bigger is going to be equal to 0. Now let's put it into action. Okay, so the next thing that you need to know when you're dealing with limits at infinity, you only care about the biggest exponent term. What do I mean by that? So like in this example, what's going to happen is infinity is so big that infinity squared is so much bigger than just normal infinity that you literally can just disregard this. Like you don't need to worry about it. So what's going to happen is you're going to pick like the biggest exponent and its term in front. So this is going to turn into 3x squared over x cubed. And then you just evaluate it from there. Smaller over bigger. So that's going to be equal to 0. So that would be your answer for this one. Let's try another example. Okay, again, this is so big that this one literally does not matter at all. So you can just disregard it. And similar to the denominator, this x squared is so much bigger than x that you can get rid of it. Literally get rid of it. So we don't need to worry about these things at all. This is going to turn into x cubed over 100x squared. And that's bigger over smaller. This exponent is bigger than this one. Bigger over smaller, infinity. Next example, same thing. We pick the biggest exponent on top, the biggest exponent on bottom, and that's what we're going to evaluate. So x squared is the biggest, 6x squared is the biggest on the bottom. So this turns into 4x squared over 6x squared. But these x squareds cancel out. 4 over 6 is your answer. Okay, so here's where things start to get a little bit trickier. You're going to start having like square roots and kind of things like that to think about.
Bruh.
When we look here, all right, 4x squared is the biggest on top, but it's being square rooted. So even though it's the biggest, you have to take into consideration, okay, it's being square rooted. So the biggest thing on top is really the square root of 4x squared, which is going to turn into 2x. And on the bottom, 2x squared is the biggest. Smaller over bigger. This is going to be equal to 0. So you need to watch out for square roots.
You need to watch out for things being cubed or squared. This 3 is cubing this x squared. So on the numerator, the biggest term is x to the 6, making this limit at infinity equal to 1.
And you also need to watch out for things being multiplied together. So in this case, in the numerator, it looks like 3x squared is the biggest. However, it's being multiplied by this x. So 3x squared times x is actually 3x cubed. On the bottom, the biggest one is going to be 6x squared. That's bigger over smaller. Your answer is going to be infinity. Let's go. Okay, so let's put it all together. All right, first we do the numerator. What's the biggest term? It's 16x to the fourth, but it's also being square rooted. What about the bottom? It looks like 3x squared is the biggest. However, it's being multiplied by this whole term right here. So when we factor this out, this 2x is going to be multiplied by 3x squared, and it's going to turn into 6x cubed. This is going to simplify to 4x squared over 6x cubed. That's smaller over bigger, so that's going to be equal to 0. All right, if you need more help on this, I am always available for tutoring at math-savvy.com, link in bio. Anything else? Slay. Okay, slay.